welcome to episode 6 of Richard's Cancer Journey. My hope is that by creating this series, that it'll be helpful to somebody going through cancer themselves, or if they have a loved one or a friend that is going through cancer, that it'll be helpful to them. A brief recap of episode 5. I'd gone from a curative path to a palliative path. I changed up my chemo regimen to FOLFIRI plus bevacizumab, which is the antibody that prevents blood vessel growth from feeding the tumors. I also started taking bucket list trips. This brings us to January of 2026. Christmas is over and I'm welcoming in the new year. I was able to spend a day off-roading in Moab, Utah. We live fairly close to Moab, and so we'd spent a solid day on the trail with friend Kirk, and we had a great time looking at petroglyphs and off-roading and just having a great time. I'm becoming weaker, so it's imperative that I always off-road with somebody else or keep it pretty mild, but it was a good time. It was a good time and beautiful scenery. So we started off the year on that note. Then later on in January, I made a trip out to see my brother in California. We had a great time visiting him and his wife Lori, and had went out to some restaurants and some vineyards and whatnot, and had a real good time. We also went to Disneyland. I'd wanted to go to Disneyland to kind of reminisce a little bit about childhood, take in some of the older rides, and just see how it was through my adult eyes. And it was a lot of fun, and we had a good time during that. A lot of nice times on that. The California trip was special, as my brother and I had not spent a lot of time together in recent years. You know, life gets in the way. In 2025, he'd come to visit me when he had heard of my diagnosis, and we spent some time, a few days here and there. But this was a nice, solid time for us to spend together for about a week. It was just a great time spending times reminiscing about our adventures in our childhood and growing up. While in California, one of my nephrostomy tubes had gotten plugged. This required a middle of the night trip to the ER. We had a very nice doctor work on me, and she was able to demonstrate the method to get that tube unplugged, and she was very thorough, and that was fairly without incident. The one funny note was that in her discharge notes, she'd put local vineyards and wineries to visit, recommended by her. So that was kind of a funny note to look at my discharge notes and have her type those. In February, Judy and I made a trip to Phoenix for a book signing. Judy has a book blog and attends several of these throughout the year. It was great seeing the wonderful authors and friends she has in that community. They're all so supportive of her. Which brings me to a point. No matter if you're a caregiver or the person fighting cancer, I would encourage you to form bonds with groups, whether they be a cancer support group or just hobbies and various special interests, church groups, that sort of thing. You don't even have to talk about cancer necessarily. It's just nice to talk about common interest and things of that sort. And it really helps for those days when things aren't necessarily going that well, where you can reach out to somebody and just share some common interest. It keeps your mind occupied. It just really keeps your mind from dwelling on the negatives. In March, my niece and her family came to visit. What a wonderful time that was. A couple of days visiting with her and her two boys, Sawyer and Sterling. Also in March, I attended a work meeting in Dallas. One of the speakers was none other than Dickie V. For those of you that follow college basketball, you'll recognize that name. He is the voice of college basketball and has been for decades. He's quite a character. He's fought cancer several times and beaten it each time. But his speech was quite inspiring, and I had the opportunity to meet him backstage. So that was a pretty special moment, even though it was just a couple of minutes. He established one of the things he did, though, was establish the Dick Vitale Pediatric Cancer Research Fund. In 1993, he established that, and he's raised over $100 million for pediatric cancer research. And what a tremendous blessing that's been for that. It's showing what good can come from these struggles. But here's an encouraging statistic. 85% of pediatric cancer patients are now surviving 5 years or longer, which is a tremendous success rate. Progress is being made in our battle against cancer. At the end of March, I had been planning an off-road trip to Baja, Mexico. We had packed up and started driving to El Centro, California. That's about a 2-day drive to meet up with our group at the border. I wasn't feeling my best. I figured I had a cold, but I figured I'd beat it over the next, day or two. Anyway, we got to El Centro and I felt worse. And I ended up making the call to back out of the trip. That was a tough call. I really didn't want to, but it wouldn't have been fair to myself or the other attendees. And it ended up being a blessing. After that day, driving back, we had to stop in Payson, Arizona, and I ended up in the ER there with a fever, and so they gave me a breathing treatment. I was diagnosed with RSV, and they gave me a liter of fluid. And I think they wanted me out of there just about as much as I wanted to get out of there. It's kind of a small hospital, and they looked at what I had going on and basically said, get on back home. The next day we made it back. Sometimes things don't work out. I really wanted to do that trip, but I made the right call. This brings us to April 26. The next episode should bring us up to about current. Thank you everyone for the views. I really appreciate it. And as always, feel free to share these videos or comment. And we'll see you next week.